Welcome to Forbidden Planet TV. I'm Andrew Sumner, and I'm privileged to be joined by an actor who needs no introduction, the one and only Emilia Clarke. How are you, mate?
I'm very, very, very well. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for joining us, because you are, of course, here not to talk about any one of the epic movie and TV projects you've been involved with, but about your new comic book out on July the 21st, published by our friends at Image Comics, M.O.M, Mother of Madness.
Yes.
Now, mate, what can you tell us about this epic book that you can order from the links attached to this conversation?
What can I tell you? Well, you have a female superhero whose powers come from her menstrual cycle and that are completely linked with her emotions. So it's very different. It's very funny. It's heartwarming, but it's got a lot of action. It does a lot of things. It's kind of the best way to describe it, if I'm being my most hopeful about how this book is received, is it's a cross between Deadpool and Fleabag.
Yeah,
that's kind of the mix.
What a great description. I love the way you've thought that through. And we were just talking off camera about the fact that myself and my daughter, who works at FP, we were lucky enough to be sent a PDF in advance of this conversation. And we absolutely loved issue 1. It's fantastic. And I think you've obviously nailed that description inside and out. But one of the things that's really pops about this book is the dialogue is fucking awesome. It's absolutely fantastic.
Thank you so much.
And I'm going to do that thing where I just quote some lines of your own book back at you. But Lucy and I's particular favorite was number 1. You did 22 Marvel movies. You can give me 5 pages, which I thought was absolutely inspired and spot on. And my personal favorite, if God exists at all, here's a huge septic asshole, which, fantastic, mate. Absolutely brilliant.
Well, thank you so much. I mean, I came up with the idea. I wrote like 50 pages of story and wrote out the whole thing, wrote out all of the characters, all of the storylines, all of the reasons why, their back history, everything. And then the incredible Marguerite Bennett walked into my life and she made it what you're reading today. So we had loads of back and forth about, like, she'd write up the first edition and then I'd come back with notes and then she'd come back with me. And what we were trying to do is she's so in my head, was so on the same page about so much stuff. But the only bit where we didn't struggle with, there was a lot of back and forth, was American sense of humor, British sense of humor, and like amalgamating the two. So I'm so happy that you as a Brit are finding a lot of it funny as well. That was
oh yeah, for sure. I think the line that you tread sort of in an inspired way is exactly that transatlantic line, where you've got the essential British take of it, the Britishness of the humor, but the pop culture awareness that we all have, existing within this pop culture superhero fantasy sphere. And I think you and Marguerite have absolutely nailed that.
Oh, thank you so much. It's so wonderful to hear you say that.
And I think your choice of collaborators has been inspired because, of course, Marguerite's chops are undoubted, and you've also got a fantastic artist at Ladle Lays just delivering really quality work on this book.
Yeah, no, I've been so lucky. So starting out, I wanted it to be an all-female team.
Yeah, right
on. Because the stats for that are pretty low, and it was a very female story and all of these things. And so Marguerite was the first person that I met, and she has been my guru throughout. And then when trying to pick artists, we were so lucky to get Layla, like so incredibly lucky. She was like number 1 on our list, and we went out to her and she wanted to do it. So it was just a beautiful thing. And I just continued to be amazed with the images that were coming back to me. I never in my wildest dreams thought it could look as beautiful as she's made it look. Yeah. So yeah, it's been really fun process.
So to that point, could you talk a bit about the genesis of the project? Before you do, I guess I'll give you some context. And I read a brilliant line by you, which is that 16% of comic book creators are female, according to a 2019 study, and only 30% of comic book characters are women, which is something I'm deeply familiar with. One of the things I do here at Forbidden Planet in Titan is run our booths at Comic-Con, so at San Diego and at New York. So me and the team have been going for 15, 20 years. And so we know how much female fandom there is, and we know how poorly served they are by the classic comic book industry.
Yeah.
And there is an absolute need for an authentic voice that writes for the female reader, not in a patronizing, paternalistic kind of way, but has that experience and that viewpoint. So how did that come to you, mate?
Well, okay, so I mean, I grew up reading comics. You got Wonder Woman, and then you've got Captain Marvel, and you have these incredible, brilliant female characters that are there. But what I see now is that they live in a certain space, and what is missing is a character that is a bit more relatable, that is a bit funnier, a bit more kind of, a woman you can read and go, oh my god, that's funny because it's true, that's funny because that happens to me, or because I know what that is, I know what that feels like. Deadpool affected me so much when I saw it. I never read the comic as a kid, but watching the movie I was like, oh my god, this is, because comic books, they're always fun. There's always some humor in there, I find, largely speaking. There's a little like nod and a wink, which I always crave. That was the bits that I most enjoyed. And then watching Deadpool I was like, and I wondered, would people want a female version of this? Is that something that people are gonna be interested in? Because I've not needed a woman in my superhero stories to make me go to the movies. So that was a part of it. But the comic book world is a place where I have been so welcomed. And I've because I had my, as a kid, I was always reading fantasy fiction, Lord of the Rings and Philip Pullman and all these things. And I was reading the comics, and then going to Comic-Con for the first time, that was only because of Game of Thrones. That was the first time I actually stepped foot into a comic book convention. And the people that I met and the artistry that I saw and everything, I was just amazed by. It just seemed like, oh, this is the land where any story is possible, where you can do anything at all. So to write a story, for me, it seemed like the logical place for me to write whatever, wild is your wildest imagination. And so it's kind of, it just all made sense for that to be the case. But I wanted to have something that was essentially for everyone. It is a female story, but I wanted, the menstrual cycle, which is where she gets her powers from, is a vehicle to describe, we are humans, we have emotions, let's not feel shamed about them, let's feel like they are the thing that make us unique and powerful. With a bit of a giggle alongside it, because life is funny. There's a lightness there that I think when reading a comic book, I feel like it is different. And I wanted to break new ground with this. I wanted to only hire women in making it. I wanted to break comic book conventions in the way that we told that story, and when the splash pages were, and to kind of have it feel and look something completely different. So hopefully we've done that.
I think you have in spades, and I think there is such a massive need for what you've done, because as progressive as comic books have always been, and as left-leaning as, say, the Marvel universe has always been, if you go back and you read the original Marvel comics from the early 60s, and you read like the Avengers with the Wasp in, with all the Invisible Woman from the Fantastic Four, all these characters that existed back in the day, the thing that would shock you if you go back and read the original comics is how utterly marginalized the female characters are, despite the fact that the books are progressive. They're also very much of their time, and it's like watching comic books written by the cast of Mad Men.
No, it's exactly it. Because 30% of superheroes are women, but most of them are pretty passive.
Yes,
not
absolutely.
Very. They don't have much autonomy over their lives, and I wanted that to be this story. I wanted it to be the story of a woman who was getting autonomy over her life and was taking control of who she was and embracing it, and being kind of encouraged by a host of other characters that allow her to be the best version of who she is. That's definitely in line with why this has been made.
And I think Deadpool jammed in a blender with Fleabag is such an inspired description. And certainly in issue 1, there's much enjoyment to be had from the way in which Maya interacts with the various instances of mansplaining she rubs up against. which was some of my most some of the passages I enjoyed the most in book one were tied around that experience.
Oh, good. Yeah, I think the bit I know you're talking about specifically is something that, again, that was like wouldn't it be cool if we could do something like this? And then Marguerite was like, well, we'll just do that. And I was like, oh yeah, okay, let's do it.
So Emilia, what has been your process when you've working with Marguerite and working with Layla? How have you actually put the book together? What has the creative process been like?
Okay, so like I said, I wrote these 50 pages,
Yeah.
100 pages, or however many pages it was of the whole thing. Gave it to Marguerite and was like, "What do you think?" We then had a million conversations. She then wrote the first edition, which was just like in a Word format PDF with like splash page here. This is what this is doing. This is what it would look like. This is an idea of what it would look like. Layla, let me know if you agree with such and such. And so we were back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, editing that to where we thought we got to its best. And then that would go to Layla, and Layla would then start creating the artwork for it. And again, back and forth. But most of the time with Layla, I swear it was just like, yeah, exactly. That's like perfect. That's exactly what I want it to be. And then we had a separate cover artist, and that was something where I was deeply in the creation of what she looked like and what the covers were going to look like. So I wanted the covers to be completely different to what you'd normally find. And that was, I mean, the imagery with how we got there. I was doing research on astrological signs and on signs of femininity throughout the ages and having that inspire. And then I wanted more than anything for this to be a superhero who wore a costume she could pee in, and a costume she could feel comfortable picking up the kids from a school in it. So you know what I mean? I wanted it to be practical, but also look really cool. So then I started looking at like Missy Elliott videos from the 90s, with the fisheye and all of that. So it's been the creation from a aesthetics point of view has been really, really, really fun. Really fun.
Mate, I'm sure it has. I think one of the things that we do here at Forbidden Planet, we also have a sister company, Titan, that produces a bunch of comics. So I know the sheer unparalleled joy of having artwork land on your desk or on your virtual desk. When it's your words, it just must feel incredible.
No, it is. It's absolutely incredible. Because my day job, I don't get that. I don't get that. Like, I had an idea, it manifested into a thing that I can hold and I can look at. Oh my God, it's however well or badly this does, that is something I'm going to take with me to my grave. Like I feel just so fulfilled.
Well, Emilia, by the way, we were talking about covers before. I was about to say, there are two fantastic alternative covers on issue one. One's by Joe Ratcliffe and one's by Jen Bartel. And you can see those scrolling as we're talking right now. And you must have been so pleased with the way they turned out. Oh
my God, I'm so much. Because I was not fully aware of the variant covers. That was something that I didn't know a huge amount about. So then I was like, well, we can do more? We can make more stuff? Yes, hell yes. So that's been really beautiful as well from a variant covers point of view, because they come in after it's been made. So then you're like, oh, how are you going to interpret this? I'm a fan of your work already. How do you see this? It's like more is more for it's that's been amazing.
Yeah, no, I really feel that. And by the way, mate, my confident prediction is that this book is going to blow the roof off, because the first issue is just so much fun. And you're working with great partners at Image as well. Yes. I know they really get it. They know what they're doing. They're such a great bunch. But you and the team have really knocked it out the park.
Thank you so much. That I can't tell you how much it means.
It's a fact. You heard it here first. And Emilia, if you wouldn't mind, maybe 6 months or so from now, when we get to the collected edition of M.O.M, Mother of Madness, would you fancy coming back and just have another chat about that?
Absolutely. Yes, I will.
Thank you so much. So this is, I have been had the privilege to chat with Emilia Clarke all about M.O.M, Mother of Madness. Issue 1 is up for pre-sale right now at the links attached to this conversation, and publishes on July 21st. And it's an epic treat. You're going to love it. thanks so much for carving out the time to come and see us today, mate.
Thank you so much for having me. Thanks.
If you're enjoying watching Forbidden Planet TV and you're enjoying watching us talk to the world's most interesting and accomplished filmmakers, authors, artists, musicians, creators, subscribe right here. See you soon.